Hey there, Tom, Flip Anything USA. So I'm kind of continuing from the poolside chat we had last night. I had to cut short because I was heading to a movie with my boys. So it's following day. We had a lot of rain, and so I've got my boys in the car with me. We've been cleaning up different things, properties. I had a couple leaks reported, and so we had to check that out a little bit. Mostly I just sent my maids and housekeepers, to go to different places and help them clean up until I get a roofer. I got roofers to set up for tomorrow. We got a bad connection. Some of that see me, I don't know. But I'm just going to keep talking through like we are. I know the connection. I'm coming from the lake house right now, and it will get better. The connection will. So last night, we were kind of going over the subject. I talked about some people that had reached out to me. What's that say? Oh man, you may have to throw that question back in. I think I saw one of the markets, but you may have to send that back out to me again. Anyways, last night we were kind of getting on the subject. I said a couple people had written me, and they're basically kind of underfunded, and they were being challenged. Basically, should we write this contract? Do you have the, income to support such a purchase? And some of the guys wrote me and said basically they did not. And that's tough to overcome. If they want proof of purchase power, that can be a tough deal. And in fact, now that I'm very substantial financially, so I actually raise that question quite a bit to blow out my competition if I happen to have any. So that can be tough. But I've dealt with it before too. Probably one of the best things you have to do if you're a little bit on the weak side financially is maybe go start finding that money partner, or find somebody that you feel good about. That if you can find something, although really, if you talk to people that you're going to pay cash for it, you can say cash is coming, and that you're buying, that your partner's got the cash or whatever. You may be able to work yourself around some of that, but what I really started thinking about after talking last night was that maybe what I ought to be talking about is starting about different levels of beginners. Like if maybe you're brand new to real estate, but maybe you got 1,000, 10,000, 30, 40, 50,000, a couple 100,000, or maybe you're young and just don't have a lot of money. Maybe you just have a few $100 or something like that. Which depending on where you're at, one thing if you're surrounded by land is generally an owner-carried type deal, and which gives you a lot of opportunity. Hey, can somebody let me know if you see me or hear me? As I'm getting mixed signals off my screen here, so I want to make sure that you can hear me or see me. If you can't, I'll just restart this thing when I get a way better signal. Because for all I know, we're not having any luck at all. Oh well. Okay, well, thanks for telling me. I was just about to hang it up. Okay, so I'd kind of liked, what would you like to know, okay? Because I started at zero, and I started doing this when I was 19, there's different opportunities. With land, the beauty of land is that's almost always an owner-carried item. So you're not going to be challenged with people saying, do you have, proof of funds and that sort of thing? Because a lot of times the funds won't be that much. They're just going to need a down payment, and they'll carry the balance, and then you'll make payments over a period of time. Now, one of the things I thought might be useful is because, I mean, I talk to people that have, millions to invest, and I talk to some people that have, next to nothing. And it doesn't matter where you're at. The main thing is the deal, like I always maintain. The main thing is the deal, the deal. Because that's what everybody wants, that's where the profit is made, and that really has nothing to do with how much money's in your pocket. That just has to do with you getting your name on the dotted line that says you got the right to buy it. So, just, you want to, should we start with starting with zero, or should we start with starting with 5,000? I mean, who's the audience? Everybody got 5 grand, 10 grand? Starting with 10K. Okay, great. Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, so look, 10,000 bucks. That's a good place to be. Okay, and I'll tell you why. It's enough. It's enough to buy a lot of different pieces of land. It's enough to buy homes that are, in that $150,000 area. I mean, even if you have to go get a bank, and that's your down payment, it's proof of funds that you have, that you take seriously, because you can show that you got, $10,000 in the bank. So that you got a little more power than zero right there, because you can just come right up front and say, yeah, I got money, you can put a $2,000 deposit down, or a $5,000 deposit down, and feel good about it. The other thing is that, if you're buying and selling things, and that's the other good thing, $1,000 in your pocket, man, there's a lot of things, non-real estate, that you can buy and sell. Like that fire truck, I bought that for about 10 grand. I made 20 on it. And, that scissor lift I show in one of my videos, I bought that for 4,000 bucks. That could have been flipped easily for, 6, 8, 10 grand. It was worth 10 grand for sure. It cost 20,000 new, and it was like new. So you got a lot of options for buying and selling equipment and different things like that if you've got 10 grand. Now, I don't know if you watched last night, the person with the 10 grand, I think it's Steve, but with 10 grand, one of the things I was talking about, I'm starting to forget here, was that, with $10,000, you can even, I was talking about combing Craigslist. Going into Craigslist, and you can go into tools, you could even go into recreational vehicles, or whatever you're comfortable with buying. It could even be antiques, it could be a couple different things. I like small and expensive, but like I said, if you got 10 grand, you could, go into Craigslist, because this is something even I do. Go into Craigslist and start with the most expensive. You can set it to reveal the highest, most expensive stuff they have on down. And that's what I usually do. I'll go to the most expensive down. So I start perusing tools, because if I start with the most expensive, I'm going to start seeing lathes and mills and different things like that I actually know quite a bit about. And so that's something I can buy under market. If I see that, hey, that's worth 10, 15,000, I'll offer 5 grand. And I have no competition on that, because it's a regional sale, right? Things that are in Craigslist are regional. Now, somebody may look at it that's 1,000 miles away, but they're not there. They can't come look at it. And chances are that nobody wants to ship it to them. So otherwise it would be listed on like eBay. So somebody give me a hands up. Let me know that you're still able to hear me. I got no confidence in this thing. Everybody still there? Watch that for a second. Okay, well, has it been interrupted at all, Sean? Starting to feel some aches and pains. Been on a roof. thoughts on leasing land to a cell company. Oh, okay, gotcha. So I'm breaking up some, so I'll just keep rolling. Yeah, the cell towers, if that's what you're talking about, you know, I've had a few opportunities to buy some properties that had a cell tower on them, and of course the owners want to keep the cell tower because they're getting $2,500 a month sometimes, or less in some instances, but they're getting it on that little space they gave up on that cell tower. But man, it sure is ugly, and depending on how big the property is, you know, it kind of really can screw up your lot. You know, I've seen them in, where I'd build a little convenience store, or a little strip center with 8,000-10,000 feet, and then you got this fenced in area that's not really all that ideal. It's not very pretty. Some places it doesn't matter. I've seen a couple that were kind of well located at the very back of an industrial property, but you know what? It just kind of all depends on what you're and where it sets within the property. I mean, I don't know that I would give up a prime piece of real estate that would really damage, the ambiance and the basic curb appeal of a property. But if it was kind of sitting back off, and it was in the back of the corner of the parking lot, then maybe I wouldn't care, and the money would make sense. I'm actually looking at putting in I have a property. I've actually been approached on a couple different properties about putting in, what do we call them? The big billboards, like 40 by 10 or whatever they are, billboards. They like they like a 20-year deal. They actually want to lease it from me for 20 years, pay you like $350 a month. And I have to think about it, because if I let them do it, that's one thing. But I mean, I know they're getting about $2,000 a side on a billboard, and so getting $350 doesn't thrill me. And I know I looked into the construction of building my own billboard, and it cost about $60,000 to put in a very substantial. And I'm talking about the ones that, they're like, I don't know, probably 30 inches, steel pipe. That goes up. It almost looks like pipe bolted together. So I've considered it, but you just got to kind of look at the property and where it's at, and just see if it's going to adversely affect it or not. But cell towers, and I consider bulletin boards the same as the cell tower, because basically they're taking a piece of your property. Actually, the cell towers take more because they usually fence off the perimeter. Live in California, real estate is very expensive. Just in Vegas or Dallas, man, just stick to California. What city are you in California? I know California fairly well. I mean, I've bought maybe 100 properties in California. Are you out in the desert? Are you in Los Angeles? Are you up in Irvine? Well, yeah, that's the best place in California, the way I feel. I was actually looking at a lot of properties in San Clemente, and I was a big fan of that area. In fact, I can tell you a story in Irvine. There's 2 big towers. Yeah, OC. Yep, Orange County. You probably know the name Brinderson, Gary Brinderson. You may or may not know. Gary Brinderson is a buddy of mine's uncle, and Gary's a very wealthy guy, very smart guy. And I met him about, I'll bet it's been 30 years ago, maybe a little more. And he was a dairy farmer. He was milking cows, and then 5 years later, he was one of the largest constructors, or 10 years later maybe. Constructors meaning somebody that builds massive, like desalinization plants, rocket sites, that kind of construction, big stuff, for government and other governments in other countries. But anyways, even though he was my buddy's cousin, it took us about 6 months to get an appointment with him, and he had 2 jets at that time, and he just built what he called them the Brinderson Twins. I think they renamed the buildings. He actually did. He had to default on this building. Had some real tough times, but neat guy. And but he had 2 jets, and he had a book about, I don't know, an inch thick that just showed all these different massive projects that he'd done. And this is the guy that was milking cows 20 years earlier. And one of the reasons he's kind of a rock star in construction, because he's got an impeccable safety record, just impeccable. He's had thousands and thousands of people work for him on what would be considered fairly, dangerous type job sites, and like zero people get hurt. And it's because he's such a stickler for safety. And I don't know that it's absolute zero, but I mean it almost doesn't register as a percentage. There's so few, and he's so much better than the industry average of not having accidents, that he's become an authority that the big insurance companies will pay him to come speak and discuss and share, because he's an asset to an insurance company, because whatever he's doing works. Nobody's getting hurt on his jobs. And so but anyways, got a chance to meet him. Originally we were supposed to meet him and jump on a jet with him and fly somewhere and then talk to him. Let's see, do you have any direct? You're gonna have to run that question by again, bud. I didn't see it. Anyways, he would thanks. Well, anyways, Gary, it's funny. One of the first things I asked him, I said, well, I'm going to talk about what I asked him now. But, of course, we were both hungry. We wanted to know how he got so rich. But anyways, one of the things was he was a heck of a hard worker. I couldn't even tell you exactly how he got rich, but he was damn good at what he did. He did mechanical plumbing. Like he would do, like, I think the plumbing on massive buildings is where he started, and then pretty soon he was just doing, he was doing, gas facilities, meaning, like gas refineries type of thing. But I'll have to open that book and share it with you guys sometime. But it was like about this thick. He had GE executives that had, quit or started to become working for him, and real neat guy. But anyways, I guess back to the subject matter. If you got $10,000, you've got some options, because you're in a place where it's going to be easier for you to buy land. It's going to be easier for you to buy houses, because you got a little bit of capital in your hands. You're going to be able to close deals by yourself. And I like closing. I'm not all about assignments. I like assigning too. And assigning is great when you have more deals than you have money, which happens. And I mean, you can start with a deal and no money, right? So, but sometimes you might have millions of dollars of property and not have any cash on hand. That's happened to me. And so, of course, when I get something tied up, I either go grab a line of credit or something, or I look to flip something that I hold already so I can close what I'm buying, or sometimes I just flip or assign what I'm buying, or maybe I'll even take a partner. So the main thing is you got to get the deal. But when it comes to having 10 grand, if let's just say you're young, you don't have your confidence up yet in real estate, or maybe even you're not young, if you're playing with a percentage of your $10,000, $2,000-$3,000, and you're buying things of value, buying things for $2,000-$3,000 that you can flip for $5,000 and make $1,500-$2,000 or more, each time you do it. That's also kind of a sweet spot to be in if you're buying and selling and flipping things that are $2,000 or $3,000 while you have 10 grand, because you might make a mistake. You may end up buying something that seems like a great deal, then you go, oh, wait a minute, this thing's got an issue. This thing's broken. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you're thinking, now I got to fix this. So then you got to pull out a few more bucks to fix it, or maybe you got to sell it and not make so much money. But you'll feel a lot better doing that if you're only playing with a percentage of your capital, right? If you're playing with $2,000 or $3,000 deals, when you have 10 grand, you'll feel better, because you've got, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. If you had just 10 grand and you bought something that you thought was a great deal, and then all of a sudden it broke, you'd be crying the blues for sure. Yeah, no, listen, you can get in the real estate investment game with zero for sure, because that's about finding the deal. But with 10 grand, yeah, you're just going to be in a you know, with 10 grand, you know, just think about the possibilities with 10 grand, okay? And I'm bringing myself back to deals I've done when I had 10 grand or even a little less. I could look at properties that cost, you know, that maybe you even require $30,000 down. But I got 10 grand. I can make a deposit. I can make a serious $5,000 deposit, $2,000 deposit. Because if I have something I can buy for 100, you know, grand that's worth 200, I don't want that deal to get away from me. I'll take that whole 10 grand and I'll put it down. I'll say, here's a deposit, $10,000, and I have, you know, 10 days or 30 days or as many days as I can get. Yes, I've used direct mail. I've used direct mail many times. I can tell you that even in California, I peppered Ventura Beach area, Oxnard, Channel Islands area, Hermosa Beach area, looking for a beach house, and I did buy a beach house. That's how I got it, was through direct mail. I sent out probably 1,700 letters in along one beach area and maybe 2,000 in another, and the phone did ring. You know, you don't, and they're getting heavily peppered all the time. Everybody's on them, and the deals are shrinking. You know, there's deals. I mean, if you look at the beach now in California, it's tough. You know, stuff that was $1 million is $8 million. $8 million now. What used to be $1 million, and some of that stuff is just, you know, it's just probably never going to come. It's going to be a while before, you know, they're not going to go down in value. I don't see it. So some of that's going to be untouchable for a lot of people. But no, with $10,000, like say you've got a little bit of capital, you can put a decent deposit down on something, and then go find somebody else's money. Because there's going to be opportunities where people are going to say, hey, we want to know that you're serious about buying this. And if you don't have a serious deposit, that could be $1,000, that could be $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000. You know, I put $50,000 deposits down when it's, you know, a multi-million-dollar property, because I'm tying it up. I don't want it to go away. And I said, look, I'll give $50,000 right now, and we tie it up, put it, you know, to the title company. You know, I still might have some wiggle room to get out of it, if things go wrong, or you know, usually the most obvious one you want to use is subject to you approving. You know, in other words, the purchase is subject to you approving the title report. If you can make it that broad, you have a lot of leeway to get out of the deal. You just got to get out of it within the time you allow. But you definitely have a lot of leeway to get out of a deal when you have a certain amount of time to approve or disapprove of the conditions of the of the title report. A lot of times they don't have the title report ready just like that. So when you say you want 20 days to examine and review the title report, and then, you know, so you might have 10 days before it's generated, and so then you got another 20 after that, because that's when the clock starts for you to start reviewing it, to approve or disapprove. Remember that, approve or disapprove. Remember that. You have the right to approve or disapprove your deal and get your money back. But yeah, I don't know if that's clear enough for you, but with $10,000, you know, I started buying properties. In the beginning, I had to go get a partner, and as soon as I flipped it, you know, we each had 12 grand, and it was easy 12 grand for him. And then the next deal I found, you know, and I'm probably getting these out of order a little bit. You can even review some of them, what I've talked in the past. Oh yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, I see direct. Listen, I get letters all the time, and some of them are looking pretty cool. You know, I saw one the other day. It looked like a tablecloth, and they did a good job on the printing. It fooled me. I thought it was hand. Dang it, dude. I'm sorry. I didn't get to read that whole comment. But back to California. I don't even think I have to read it to know what you're probably talking about. You're worried about the competition. Direct mail isn't everything, right? And don't forget, when you see those bandit signs, sometimes those guys might have a deal. They're looking for money. Most of those bandit signs are about, hey, I got a deal, I got a deal, I got a deal, I'm looking for money, I'm looking for money. Well, they might actually have a deal. So you may want to call on some of those bandit signs, because somebody may have something that, you know, if you got the money to close, of course, or you have the resources somehow, that's worthwhile. But anyways, so no. And like I say, once you got 10 grand, you're kind of in a really good spot, because you've got a lot of play to buy and sell things of value. Like I said, look at the fire truck, the things that I posted on, a mill, a lathe, different things I have already. I've shown you videos on that scissor lift. I mean, with 10 grand, I mean, you can make $20,000 a month without even touching real estate. Just look at your Craigslist and look at your local auctions. Local auctions is the key there. Stuff that isn't necessarily going to be out for the whole public to mess with and bid on. The auctions are getting more sophisticated now, though, because you can go to an auction and you can bid on it all over the country. You can bid on them in other countries. And I've done some of that in the USA, anyways. I bought some big machines. I've even gone into some auctions where the auction was small enough. I said, how about if I just buy everything and you don't have the auction? And I damn near made a deal with these guys. And it's a shame, because there was one piece of equipment that was worth well over 300 grand by itself. And I offered him 200 grand for this whole thing. There's probably $450,000 worth of, I mean, I could have resold everything for 450. I offered 200 grand, and they thought about it hard, and then they turned it down, and then they went ahead and did the auction, and they actually got less than the 200 grand. I wanted everything, and somebody overbid on the thing that I wanted most of all. And I just saw a sign. God damn it. I may have to go back. So here we go, right? I tell you, got to go back and look at signs. I got to go back and look at this sign. So it was kind of odd. It had an arrow on it. It looked like it was in front of somebody's property, but it was pointing to somebody else's property. So I am going to turn around. And boys, I want you to help me look at this sign. Just put it to memory. Don't say it out loud. I don't want anybody stealing it that's watching. So, like I tell you guys, you got to be relentless. This is what I do. I see a sign. I smell money. I don't drive by and expect I'll look at it tomorrow when I get coffee. I turn around immediately. And son, we're going to take a picture of that sign. So what I've got is I've got a little sign here, open house, says it's reduced. It is, yeah, so there's a sign. You'll probably see it in the rear here. You can see the sign back that way. It don't matter. It's no good, son. I don't even want it. So what it was is it was a sign in front of somebody's property. I was interested in the property that it was sitting in front of, but it had an address that was not that address. So it was just simply trying to bait people over and say, let them know that it's something in the neighborhood, which I'm not interested, to be honest. I'm looking for commercial property more than anything right now. I'll buy a piece of residential if it's a steal, but that sign there, if it's saying it was reduced, then it was probably being, they were already asking too much. Otherwise it'd be gone, right? So I'm not going to bother on that. But anyways, did I answer all your questions there? It doesn't matter. If you're in California, don't look to Vegas to buy. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay right where you're at. Just look nearby. Look nearby. I'm sure you can find, if you're real concerned about the values, if you're just surrounded by, $5-10 million homes, it's not your game, then I understand totally. It's not mine either, to be honest. But, I can drive a few blocks and I'm sure I can find, places where they're, $500,000, 600, 700, 800,000, and or maybe go a little bit, a few miles away if you have to. Maybe for land, I've done that. I used to drive about 15 miles away to an area that was a hot spot for land. Oh yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Appreciate you watching. So like you might have a little hot spot. Like I just coming from the lake, right? That lake deal going to make a couple $100,000 on. Now, a place like that, I will go visit. But it's like me entering a community that I'm concentrating on. Just like the lake, actually. Okay. As far as the entities go, I immersed myself into that stuff when I was first, for the reasons for having that stuff. And you should have entities. The more money you got, the more you got to hold things in different entities. I got 4 kids, and so I probably don't own anything. The only thing I own personally is a home. That's it. It's a home. I mean, and some cars and things, but real estate wise, the only thing I own is a home. Now, I do control quite a few entities that own quite a lot of property, okay? And that's how you want to have your assets. You want to control them and be in charge of them. And there's a lot of reasons to have entities that, for instance, one of the most obvious ones for me is I have children I want to pass my wealth on to. So, and also, so my kids own percentages. A minor is not allowed to own real estate. You're not allowed to buy a piece of real estate if you're like 18 or over. So it's maybe a little bit different in some states, but overall that's how it is. But they can own, at any age, they can own a percentage of an LLC, that's a limited liability company, or an LP, a limited partnership, and you'll also see FLP, which is like a family limited partnership, which is the same as a limited partnership. It just makes it sound nice if you're in court. Then it's a family limited partnership, because now you're bothering a family, depending on what side of that you're on. But it doesn't matter. Both entities serve a purpose. They both, they both are very much structured the same. There's a managing partner, and you got your limited partners and your general partner. And the general partner is the guy that kind of has the most liability. And you can even have like an LLC be the GP, the general partner of all. You could have 100 limited partnerships, and where everybody, yourself and your family are all limited partners, but this LLC is the general partner. But somebody's got to be the general partner and manager of that LLC. And there's good reasons for that too. And there's a guy, I don't even think he's that active, he's pretty old, but Mitton, M-I-T-T-O-N. And he was very intent on holding your assets as such. For his main purpose was for asset protection. Because effectively, when you create these entities, they have all the rights and benefits of a person. You see, it's almost like you're creating a person, or you're creating at least a vehicle, or something that has all the rights of a person. It can own real estate, right? It's not a person, but it owns real estate, and as that asset owns real estate, it itself is owned by people. So here's a reason it can be important and good. If you're, I don't know, let's say you've got a partner that is in a risky business, might end up being liable for something, who knows what, I have no idea, I'm just giving you a rough example. Or somebody that's careless or a drunk, they run over, they hurt somebody, they're going to get sued and their assets are going to get attached. Well, you don't really want to be a fee simple partner with that guy on a piece of real estate where it just says the real estate's owned by you and joint partners, but not in a partnership. It just has you both listed as partners. That would be more vulnerable to being taken by the courts. So but somebody like that's kind of a liability, or could be, or even maybe yourself. Maybe you've got some issues that make you potentially a liability that's going to put your assets at risk. It's best to have those in a limited partnership so that your wife and kids and whoever that are your partners, if something goes wrong for you and you get sued, they're not forced to liquidate that asset, because you can't let the baggage of somebody else damage everybody else. So what ends up happening is that person can still be liened and get a judgment against them for doing something wrong, and there might even be a judgment against their shares if ever, but they may never get those shares. And so basically it makes the judgment that they might get on them through a lawsuit not be so valuable. And then they can, maybe they can make their problem go away for, 10 cents on the dollar or something like that. So anyways, but for me, it's important for it's just important so I can make my kids my partners, and it's just all about passing on my wealth and creating their wealth, and then also building their wealth. So that's why those are more important than ever for me. So is there another question? I know I saw something popped up there that I missed. I'm kind of getting near my destination here, and which I may come back on here in a little while. I'll have a better signal too, but I'm ready to grab a glass of wine and relax a little bit and maybe eat a little food. So maybe I'll come back and turn this thing on in a couple hours. Say maybe 7 o'clock Central. Does that work for everybody? So that'd be 5 o'clock California, 8 o'clock New York, maybe even an hour later than that, maybe even later. Maybe do it at 9 o'clock. Anybody got a preference? Okay, let's see. Come back. That would be. What time, Sean? What time would work for you? I'm not sure I can hit it, but I'll try. Watch that screen. So I'm watching.